Okay, so today I'm going to be introducing you to a concept that's going to be an absolute game changer with regards to how you approach life and business. It's the idea of playing 30-day games. So for a lot of people, especially when it comes to money goals and business goals, it often feels to a lot of people like they're playing an unwinnable game. From the moment they set a goal or shortly thereafter, they start battling with self-doubt and the fear of failure, right? They don't believe that they're going to win at their goal. So overwhelm sets in, doubt becomes discouragement, discouragement becomes disbelief, disbelief becomes defeat, right? Until eventually the person or the player loses the will to keep playing the game and drops out of the game, right? Quits their goal. This happens because they approach the infinite game of business with a finite mindset. They think the objective is to win the game rather than master the game. So this is a subtle but important difference. So let me explain it a little more in depth, right? In sports, right, like soccer, football, each match is a finite game. There's an agreed upon objective that, when reached, ends the game. It's black or white. You either win or lose the match, right? And when we set specific, measurable, time-bound goals, we are also playing finite games. It's black or white. You either succeed in reaching your goal or you fail. In sports, matches are finite, right? The individual games themselves are finite, but the game itself is infinite. You may lose a game, right? You may lose a match, but then there's always another one. You may even lose an entire season, but then there's another season. The sport lives on. You can win or lose your individual matches, but you can't win or lose the sport. When you have an infinite mindset, the point of going through wins and losses is to master the sport, to become a better player of the game, because the sport is an infinite game. There's no place where you permanently won or lost. In fact, there's no such thing as winning in an infinite game because there's no finish line. There's no practical end to the game. The primary objective of an infinite game is to keep playing and to keep getting better at playing. And it's the same thing in business. Business is an infinite game. The game of business has no finish line. There's no place to arrive where you permanently succeeded or won out over the competition. And by the same token, there's no way to permanently fail. I mean, the only way to permanently fail is to take yourself out of the game. And so many people do, right? Because they fixate on the win instead of focusing on mastery and getting better. They have a finite mindset that is fixated on results instead of an infinite mindset that's focused on the process of continuously improving. So when they lose and they're not creating the results that they want immediately, when they're not creating the clients, when they're not making the money, generating the revenue that they want, when they're not reaching, the goals and performance objectives that they set for themselves, they end up taking themselves out of the game instead of doing the things that pro athletes do in sports that create the conditions for mastery of the game. So let's go over what some of those things are, because we're going to be building them into the way that you approach your 30-day games. I'm going to give you a high-level overview, and then we'll go more in depth in coming days and trainings. So the first thing that creates the conditions for mastery of the game is strategic gameplay. We started to cover this when I introduced you to the idea of reverse engineering outcomes into outputs and beginning with the end in mind. And I'm also going to be introducing you to a concept called business protocols, which are like training protocols to optimize the performance of your business, and that will support you in taking strategic action to get the ball rolling and eventually move it past that goalpost, right? So we want to make sure that we're not just taking action to take action. We want to make sure that we have well-defined goals and a strategy, just like an athlete before they step out onto the field. The second thing that creates the conditions for mastery of the game is dividing the game that we're playing, the goal we're going after, into periods and taking timeouts. We need to get in the practice of pausing our gameplay to work on our businesses, not just in our businesses. We need to step off the field to be able to assess our gameplay and align our output with the outcomes that we're aiming to create. So I suggest that you break down the 30-day game that you're playing into 7 or 10-day periods. And then during the time between two periods, you will do the same thing that a sports athlete would do. You will evaluate your gameplay, you will get coached or self-coach, and you will revise your strategy. You will evaluate it, make any tweaks to it that you need to. You can and should also take timeouts as needed if ever your head is just not in the game for whatever reason, or something comes up that you didn't account for in your strategy that's throwing your gameplay off between periods, right? When you pause your gameplay, the third and fourth things that create the conditions for mastery of the game are actually some of the things that I just mentioned. So evaluating your gameplay, as well as getting coached and coaching yourself. I'll be covering those more in depth in terms of like how to do it in coming trainings, but for now, just keep that in mind. And then the fifth and last thing that creates the conditions for mastery of the game is creating highlight reels and celebrating wins, right? So that's something you want to get in the practice of doing, because to create progress and cultivate persistence, you have to allow yourself to see your progress. If you never celebrate your wins, it never really locks it in. And you can end up feeling like you're spinning your wheels, putting in all of this effort with not much to show for it, right? And so it's important to get in the practice of seeing how far you've come. What you'll notice in sports is that when they do a replay of the highlight reels from the game, they're not just showing the highlights from the winning side, right? The highlight reel will showcase excellent gameplay across both sides. So win or lose, you want to get in the regular practice of highlighting your wins. Even if you're down on the scoreboard or you end up losing one of your 30-day games, meaning you don't hit the mark of what you were aiming for. When you play a 30-day game like creating 5K in 30 days, while you aim to create that result within the first 30 days, you play the game with the understanding that it may take several rounds of the game to develop the mindset, the skill sets, and the strategy to win an individual game. Remember, the point of playing a finite game over 30 days is to develop mastery and skill so that you keep playing the infinite game. And most people get it when it comes to sports, right? If you're picking up a new sport, you might not win your first game. That's often to be expected, but the more that you play and the better you get at coaching yourself and receiving strategic feedback and giving yourself strategic feedback, the better you're going to get at playing the game and the better your odds of winning. So it's the same thing in business. Okay, so the last thing that I wanted to cover about 30-day games is more of a refresher, but I think it will also give you some powerful frame around why these 30-day games are set up the way that they are. So when you're playing a 30-day game, be it this one or a game with a different end goal, what I've been having you do is get in the practice of registering your intention before noon. So that's where you are reminding yourself of the objective of the game that you're playing every single day. So in this case, it's to make 5K in 30 days, right? And once you've reminded yourself, stepped onto the field of the game that you're playing, you're acknowledging, accepting, and creating beyond any limiting conversations that come up. And you're committing yourself to one daily action that moves you closer to your goal. And then each day before midnight, I'm having you register your win. So if you took the action that you committed yourself to taking at the start of the day, that's a win. And if you didn't, that's a loss. The point of this is to work on developing your capacity to keep your head in the game on a day-to-day basis, right? This way, you'll also get in the practice of going through wins and losses. It's just like, in sports, like scoring and losing points throughout a game. You want to be able to do that without taking yourself out of the game or giving up on winning just because you're down on some points. Does that make sense? So remember, every loss is actually just a lesson. Coach yourself through it or get coaching and support. Keep playing the game and eventually you will become a master of the game. If this video helped you out in any way, make sure that you smash that like button or give it a little boop and click on the screen right now to watch another video just like this one with more tips and strategies to level up your life coaching business. Or join my free 30-day course with the link below this video. I'll see you in the next one.